Project Management for Healthcare Managers, Week 6, Project Planning, Tools and Practice, HCML 375. This session covers tools, documents, and practices that span the project lifecycle. We'll be covering many of the documents in the class project. I'm giving more descriptions of use and functionality, but not a lot of pictures. I want you to go out and find the examples, the templates for the actual tools, and to put those together in a class project. This will cover some of the important fields, why each document is used, and how it will be used in healthcare. These documents that make up the forms help drive the project management process. Good project integration needs to have the right documents. One of the key documents that is filled out during the initiation phase is the project charter. From the project charter, the rest of the project planning documents will be completed based on the information from the charter. The PMO will typically have the standards, the expectations, set on how much to fill in and when to fill it out. At a minimum, there is a set of documents that are usually found in the project planning standards. And these are the scope documents, the requirements and traceability matrix, a stakeholder registry, a risk registry, and a communication plan. The charter is the cornerstone of a project, the anchor that provides the direction for the project to go. It is a document that will create a contract between the project team and the sponsor on what will get done. The charter also provides the outcomes for the customers and hopefully includes enough detail to give the customers what they want. The charter defines the goal, the scope, and the business case, and the outcome of the charter. This contract between the project team and the sponsor and the customer needs to be completed before the project gets approved to start. It becomes the document of negotiated agreement that will guide the documents and the people toward a successful outcome. The important parts of a charter to create agreement help drive specific behaviors and motivations on the team. One of the fields that's filled out is the project members. This should include the name of the project team or the vital resources or the subject matter experts, and then define their roles on the team. Thinking back on team dynamics, the storming phase was high process energy because the people of the team are identifying the roles, and if this is unclear or in dispute, this would cause conflict. Identifying the people and their jobs sets up the roles and moves the teams through the storming phase. Another field that's important is the project goal, also known as the objective of the project or the final outcome. The goal provides the task energy and alignment toward the goal that will help grow functional teams. The direction and vision are also identified in a good goal statement where everyone knows what the result looks like and the path to get there. A good approach to setting goals is using the acronym SMART, which stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. Goals that are vague, unrealistic, or lack commitment to completing at a specific time will cause conflict. It is also important in developing the goals to make them important, to help build a business case for action. The next field that is going to be included is the background. This can also be a problem statement or the business case. Whatever it's called, it needs to explain why we're doing this project. There may be a separate business case as a document, which supports the background of the problem statement. This starts the unfreezing process in change management. This supports the business case for action and gets people open to change if the current problem is well stated. The scope of the project is a summary of what will be included in the project and may have what will be excluded. A scope statement was covered in scope management and is coming up as a document to review. The scope sets the boundary and requirements that all the other planning documents are built on. The timing is important here too. The scope document is created during the planning phase and needs the details, but the charter is created during the initiation phase and includes very basic building blocks of the project. The constraints or barriers or roadblocks that will cause the project to be delayed or cause other problems. The deliverable is the output of the project, the outcome or result when the project is finished. This should be a measurable result so that you can tell when you have a successful delivery to the customer. A high-level timeline is also found in most charters. A top-down estimate of the project broken up into estimated milestones. There can also be a proposed budget, a top-down estimate that creates the capital request for funding. In some organizations, the business case may be a separate document. The problem statement within the charter gives context to the charter and the purpose of the project and answers the question, why are we doing this? And what problem needs to be solved? A separate business case may need to be provided as additional justification for a project, possibly for governance or financial analysis of the value. An expanded business case includes the details of the issue to be resolved, mitigated for the organization, and may also include alignment to strategy. An identification of the aligned strategies and tactics provide clarity that the outcomes of the project match their strategic results. A scope template or scope questionnaire is a tool to guide the scope statement. Review the scope statement as one of the important project documents, defining what will be included in the project requirements and deliverables. A template provides the framework of topics of scope to be reviewed with the sponsor or project team. A template or questionnaire is typically a list of questions to ask if in scope or out of scope. Questions may include resources, timeframes, budget, decision-making authority. A good example of what decisions can a project make without having to consult the sponsor, and what type of decisions will the sponsor retain control. The out-of-scope factors may be listed as project constraints. Another way of determining scope is to brainstorm with the project team and compiling a list of project factors that will be in scope or out of scope and presenting to the sponsor for approval. The template or questionnaire becomes a tool or checklist to be able to brainstorm with the team. We've also talked about the requirements as being part of scope management. To review, the requirements include the business requirements or what deliverables does the organization need. The technical requirements are IT software and hardware specifications that need to be included, and the customer requirements, which are the value metrics that the customer expects. The requirements list is just a list of requirements that's used for project planning, such as resource management or quality management. The resource traceability matrix is a list of the requirements and their source. For example, a business requirement may have been traced back to a specific regulation that a business must satisfy. By having the source information, the reason for the requirement, any tolerance or specification can be verified and test plans can be created. A stakeholder registry is a complete list of individuals or groups that are involved and have an impact on the project. A registry is a simple list that typically identifies the relationship to the project and logistical information such as email or phone number. Linking a register to an organizational chart is helpful. The stakeholder registry becomes a helpful tool in communication management. The stakeholder analysis tool makes a list of the stakeholders and rates their level of acceptance or buy-in to the goals of the project, so that resistance can be proactively managed. The ratings of acceptance or resistance of the stakeholders in the plan to manage this resistance should be a confidential document. This is an example of how to use the stakeholder analysis. The names of the stakeholders are listed in the first column. These stakeholders should have control or influence over the project progress and outcomes. The next section is a rating scale to visually identify where each stakeholder lies on the continuum between resistance and supported. In the top row, we see that the stakeholder is strongly against. In the second row, the stakeholder is supportive. Next, we want to identify the stakeholder that we need to proactively manage the resistance. In the first row, we marked where we wanted them to be with an O. The next step is to identify the issues or concerns that the stakeholders that are resistant have with the project and look for change management strategies to manage their resistance. One approach is to get the resistance stakeholder involved in the project. Another way is to leverage strong supporters to influence the resistors. The steps and outcomes of the change management process can be tracked on the stakeholder analysis tool. Another way that the stakeholder registry can be used is to create a responsibility matrix. This matrix is used to identify the stakeholder's role in the project. A correlation matrix is used here, much like the A3X, to create a grid to analyze the relationship between the roles and the tasks. There are different correlation matrices that track project task responsibility. Two examples are the RACI and the ARMY. The RACI identifies who is responsible for getting a task done and who is accountable. For example, the project task may be delegated to a project team member, but the accountability remains with the project manager. There can be multiple stakeholders responsible for a task, but only one should be accountable. The ARMY identifies who must approve or verify project tasks. Some tasks need leadership or governance approval, and other tasks just need to pass quality assurance. Each type of correlation matrix helps a project manager clarify roles and tasks. This is an example of a correlation matrix. In this example, the project tasks are listed on the columns on the left, and the roles or stakeholders would be listed in the header row. The correlation between the tasks and the role are defined in the intersecting cells. In this example, I would be starting a RACI. I would want to identify who's responsible for the sample task and who would be accountable for the outcomes. In some cases, the members may have more than one role. For example, a process owner might be responsible for some project task as well as being accountable for their completion. Another important document is the risk log or risk register. There was a sample of a risk log in the risk section when we covered the FMEA. In the FMEA, there were 3 measurements that were multiplied together to come up with a weight, or the RPN, the risk priority number. In any risk log or risk register, the identified scoring should be recorded, and in many cases, the probability and severity are used. Before the weights are determined, a detailed description of the risk needs to be created and agreed on by the team. This creates consensus and provides operational definition of the results if the risks were encountered. Those risks that were scored above the risk threshold need to be analyzed. A potential or likely root cause needs to be documented so that preventative steps can be taken. The next part of the risk log is a mitigation plan, what we'll do if the risk is encountered and if there's funds to get things back on track. To be proactive, an early warning system for risk includes a trigger point for detection before the risk becomes unmanageable. A communication plan is another document that can be created from a stakeholder registry. Some project managers start with the status requirements to fill in this grid, but the approach I'm recommending looks at the communication as meeting the stakeholders' needs to manage change, and would recommend using the stakeholders and identifying their needs. How often do they need communication or frequency? Some choices of frequency may be weekly, monthly, or daily, or sometimes just once during the project. What is the message that needs to get to their frame of reference? And what is the best media in terms of cost and trust level? And is there a feedback method in place to get the receivers to acknowledge the message? One of the common communication documents is the status report. In the upcoming session on status reporting, we focus on the progress of the project and the management of issues, including issue management and change requests. A status report template is a standard form of communication that gives progress and work accomplished to the leadership and the project team. The part of standards is a progress or status in metric form, which is typically a color, green, yellow, red. It is important to have a consistent understanding of what these levels mean. Other subjects that are typically found on status reports are what work has been accomplished to date, a list of the issues that have occurred and a plan to resolve, and the next steps for the project team. Some project status reports are detailed. However, it is best to be brief and to the point. The change request is used if there is a change to scope, schedule, or budget. If there has been an issue or risk that becomes an issue that cannot be avoided or mitigated using a workaround or contingency. The change request is a change to baseline and needs the same approval that a charter had to establish the initial requirements. This needs to include the description of the change and the rationale, as well as the changes that need to occur for the scope, schedule, or budget, and any adjustments for the resources. Then this is approved by the sponsor and any other necessary governance. The issue log captures all the details of an issue that occurs during a project. The issue log may be shared during the status meeting, but its importance comes with managing and tracking work and status on issues that impact the project. The typical information that gets captured is an issue description. What is the problem that is occurring? Most issue logs include an ID to simplify tracking, and who reported the issue is important so that additional details and traceability can occur. Having an issue category helps manage the issues in terms of what resources need to be involved and what is the order of priority. Once the issues have been identified, the issue log becomes the source of what is being done and if the issue is being resolved. Work can be assigned and the feedback or progress can be recorded until the issue is resolved. The issue log becomes a rolling list where the current issues are managed and dropped to the closed section when resolved. The meeting agenda is an essential tool for effective meetings. The agenda can be a standardized format but needs to include some specific information to drive desired behavior and engagement during face-to-face or conference calls. The date, time, and location should be set up prior to the meeting as the project management preparation. The date, time, and location needs to take schedules and calendars into account. The list of meeting attendees is important. The right people should be present, and they should know why they're there. Inviting someone who doesn't have a role is a waste of their time. The purpose is the reason why we're meeting and should include the output or result of the meeting. A simple outline and time estimates help keep things on track during the meeting. Using good facilitation skills helps set up meeting activities to arrive at specific decisions or outcomes. A document that is typically created near the end of the project is the lesson learned document. We will revisit the lessons learned in the project close next week. The lesson learned document should accompany the rest of the project documents that have been completed and should fill in the gaps on what happened in the project. This document should summarize the positives and challenges on the project so that next similar projects have insight and can learn from the mistakes in the past. The project documents include the schedule, and the lessons learned document should document whether the schedule was followed and if there's anything that should have been done differently. The risk register will contain the risks that were encountered and the response to the issue. The lessons learned document should summarize the responses and give an evaluation on how they worked. The issue log should have the details about any issues, and the lessons learned should summarize what worked well. Any unplanned events should also be captured in the lessons learned document. The lessons learned document has traditionally been used as a debrief or closure document. However, it becomes more valuable to a project manager to identify improvements on the next project. Another document created near the end of the project would be a project close checklist. This checklist would be used as a mid-project audit checklist for the project plan documents, and the documents used during monitor and control, like the status report, the issues log, the change log, the risk log, and the budget worksheet. This final checklist would typically be available from the PMO as a standard, and good project managers should have this ahead of time so that the final documents don't have to be created at the last minute. For all the project documents, there needs to be contribution from other members to be completed. These are a few ways to compile the information needed for these documents. One of the ways is to capture the ideas and thoughts from a team to create documents is by brainstorming. Some ways to brainstorm are to use post-it notes, whiteboarding, or to use an online collaboration tool like Link or WebEx. Using a scribe to capture ideas on a flip chart is a great way to brainstorm. The key is to facilitate the free flow of ideas, to facilitate so that all ideas are heard and not to make any judgments on any ideas, or try to come up with a resolution before understanding the problem. The way that I like to facilitate a brainstorm session is to have the members write down their ideas first, working silently for a couple of minutes. This allows introverted thinkers to process their thoughts. Then I have the group break up into dyads and have the team tell their partner what they've come up with and write anything additional that comes up for them. This allows the extroverted thinkers time to process. Looking at ways to encourage participation is a key to good facilitation. Another way to compile information is to have a workshop where the team and subject matter experts will gather in planned activities to share and document their contributions. There may be some brainstorming that occurs in a workshop, or brainstorming may occur in individual meetings. Another way to get information is by interviewing. This can be done as a panel, or during a team meeting, or done individually in one-on-one sessions. Interviewing is a great way of sensing, to collect project information as well as team dynamics and departmental cultural information as well. Another way of gathering information is a survey, where people are polled from a set of questions. Surveys typically do not get a high response rate. They're low cost, low trust way to communicate. Interviews are higher, but usually better information is gathered. Looking through prior documentation, such as project documentation from previous projects, or organizational process assets is an excellent way to get information. Finally, pay attention to any documentation from outside sources that have a significant impact on your project, like regulations or policies. During this section, we reviewed the project integration documents, like the charter and the requirements, which are documents that are started during the initiation phase and create a blueprint for the planning documents and provide the final deliverable. Then we reviewed the rest of the project management tools, the documents that are developed and used in planning, monitoring, control, and close. We wrapped up with methods to compile the information from the team and other important resources.